What's up, guys? This is Dino here, and today I'll be beginning a brand new series. This is something that I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in, especially after they basically buried Alain absolutely, like made him look like an amateur against Leon. Although I do think he knocked Bloom out with his Charizard, but then uh, Leon's Charizard didn't even Dynamax and it wrecked Alan's Mega Charizard X, which again raises the question: how weak is Trevor's Trevor's Mega Charizard Y? Like it got wrecked by pre-champion Alan, and then Leon comes in with his Charizard's base form and wrecks Alan's Mega Charizard X. So yeah, that was absolutely crazy. So anyways, I thought that I would take a swing at the twin concept because Pickledale made a series whatifash and Paul were twins. uh, that's that's one of the only ones that I can remember of the top of my head, because to be honest with you, I haven't watched many twin stories, especially in Pokemon, except for that, and that was a bit interesting for sure. And I have watched twin stories in Naruto where Naruto and Sasuke were twins, Sarada and Sasuke were twins, stuff like that, So I thought that it would be a fresh challenge for me to tackle, and it would be something different because, to be honest with you, I never thought that I would do a twin concept story because it seemed a bit odd to me. But when I thought about it, I figured it would be an interesting challenge to see where I'm at currently. Like if I can make a decent story out of a concept that I'm unfamiliar and a bit like untested waters for me, I think it would help me grow as a content creator. So that's the reason I'm beginning this story. And plus, let's be honest, it will hopefully it will garner in views because people love Alan and people love Ash and people love Charmander. So that's the reason for the thumbnail. So that was about it. And don't worry about the glasses, I don't have like power on them or something. This is just for reading purposes, and I think everyone should have a reading glasses because spending too much time on in front of the screen is not good. So get your glasses. Now enjoy the rest of the video. This story is taking place in an alternate timeline. In this timeline, the events of Pokemon Omega Ruby slash Alpha Sapphire and Pokemon X slash Pokemon Y have already taken place. So, in short, this will be a timeline which is completely different from the anime timeline and also different for the game timeline. But it draws inspiration from both of them alongside some side games. So, please keep an open mind while watching this. And now we begin the story. Our story begins in the Lumio city of the Kalos region. The native Professor Sycamore was greeting his two pupils, Ash and Alan. The twin brothers enrolled in the Pokemon Academy well before the other kids in the neighborhood did, and that was because of their immense love for Pokemon. Ever since they watched some Pokemon battles on television and watched some documentaries on the regular habitat of Pokemon in the wild, all they wanted to do was learn more about Pokemon, battle with them, and make friends with them. So, keeping that in mind, both of them worked really hard in the academy and were able to win the scholarship, which gave them the opportunity to work under Professor Sycamore as his apprentice. Both of them made most of this opportunity and learned everything that they could about Pokemon. They basically stayed at the lab even during night times and barely went home. All they wanted to do was help the professor in his research, and that way learn more and more about Pokemon. They had become very adept in learning about the basic battle mechanics as to which type is super effective and not very effective on the other. In addition to this, due to being constantly in care of due to being constantly in charge of taking care of the starter Pokemon, they were very adept at handling the baby Pokemon, which which didn't have much experience, and thus they had some experience in Pokemon breeding as well. One fine day, the professor greeted both of them and asked if they were ready, and the both twins looked at each other and smiled happily. This was the moment that they were waiting for. This was finally the day of their first ever field trip, and this was not going to be in some nearby city or even the Kalos region for that matter. This was going to be in the much diverse and water-covered Hoenn region. Ash and Alan had learned a lot about the Pokemon found in the Hoenn region, as a few of them were native in Kalos as well. But despite that, they wanted to see these Pokemon for themselves. They had also learned about the Pokemon League in the Hoenn region and the various events that took place recently, as they saw it on the news. These events particularly involved the legendary Pokemon Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza. Ash Ash and Alan both watched these these three titans battle on television, and they witnessed Rayquaza finally evolving into Mega Rayquaza and taking down Primal Groudon and Primal Kyogre. So naturally, they were absolutely hyped up for this particular journey. After after a rather excruciating plane ride, in which Ash constantly tried to jump out of the plane because he believed that a bird Pokemon will eventually catch him and thus save him, and also because he was absolutely terrified of flying. After this whole ordeal, they finally landed in Hoenn region. They landed in the Petalburg city, and Professor Sycamore told them to settle down before they take a car from here to Little Town, which was the hometown of his friend, Professor Birch. After getting freshened up, all three of them made their way to Little Town, where they were greeted by the native Pokemon Professor Birch. He greeted Professor Sycamore as if they were friends for many, many years. Before he looked at Ash and Alan and asked if these were the boys Professor Sycamore was talking so highly about. They both look at Professor Sycamore and grin at the compliment, as normally the professor would not bless them with such compliments, as he believed that praising someone way too much leads them to being complacent and eventually spoiled. Professor Birch asked them a few pop quiz related to Pokemon typings, the starter of the Hoenn region, and all that stuff, and both of them were able to answer each and every one of the questions, leaving the professor rather impressed by them. Ash, being ever the rushy type, asked Professor Birch where was their field trip going to take place, and Professor Birch merely chuckled at the enthusiasm being shown by Ash. Although Alan sighed at his brother's overly excited attitude, deep down he was also very psyched up to see what kind of Pokemon inhabited the Hoenn region. Professor Birch told them that for today they were going to Mount Pyre, as he had heard that there were some odd energy which could possibly be linked with Mega Evolution. This immediately piqued the interest of Professor Sycamore, as he asked the professor what exactly did he find there. Professor Birch told him that it was not much, as he believed that it could have been the energy being radiated off a meteorite that fell on Earth a long time ago. But it's weird because ever since the whole ordeal with Rayquaza happened, the Mega Evolution energy, except for the ones that are emitted by the Pokemon and their trainers using the Mega Stone and the Keystones, have been fairly tamed down. So it was surprising that they felt another foreign energy, which could possibly be linked to the Mega Evolution. So that's where they will be headed. Ash asks them when are they leaving, and Alan steps on his foot in order to signal him to be respectful towards the professor. But Professor Birch tells them that it's quite alright, and they will be leaving shortly after they had their lunch. Once again, this was a very joyous occasion for Ash, as he had never tasted the local cuisine of the Hoenn region, and to say the least, he was very, very impressed with the seafood that was presented to him at Professor Birch's house. After having eaten their full, the group made their way to Mount Pyre on Professor Birch's bike, not bike, car. I'm sorry. After reaching Mount Pyre, Professor Sycamore and Professor Birch decided to explore the area where the Mega Evolution energy was being radiated. He looked at Ash and Alan and told them to stay put and not roam around aimlessly. Ash pleads with the professor that if they could just visit the Pokemon tap, if they could just visit the cemetery nearby to check out some ghost Pokemon. Professor Sycamore tells Ash that the cemetery is very old and the building is very rusty, so it wouldn't surprise him if Ash fell down some debris. Ash tells him not to worry about it, as they wouldn't climb the top; they would just survey around the area. Alan looks at Ash suspiciously before he leaves with him. After they leave the two professors to their duties, Ash tells Alan that he has a plan, and Alan immediately recognizes that Ash is planning something which would not end well. And to his confirmation, Ash tells him that he plans on going to the volcano top. Alan asks Ash if he's crazy, but Ash tells him that he read in a book that the top of the volcanic part of Mount Fire is a breeding ground to all sorts of fire Pokemon. So it wouldn't surprise him if somehow they encountered the legendary bird Moltres. Alan tells Ash that he's an idiot, as Moltres is native only to the Kanto region, so why would it come to the Hoenn region? And plus, Moltres is a legendary Pokemon, and normally legendary Pokemon don't breed. Ash then tries to bring up the situation of Manaphy and Fion, which Alan shuts down immediately. But regardless, it somewhat piques his interest, just to see what kind of fire Pokemon will lie there. So Alan tells Ash that if they get into trouble, he will just put all the blame on Ash, and Ash tells him that that's quite alright. So the two twins make their way up the volcanic parts of Mount Fire on their bicycles. Upon reaching the top, they instantly begin to feel the heat. As Alan tells Ash, he told him it was a bad idea, but Ash suddenly covers Alan's mouth and tells him to hide behind a cliff. And then they both witness in awe as something magnificent arrives in front of them. It's a Charizard, the fully evolved fire starter of the Kanto region, in all its glory, right in front of them. As they witness the magnificent Pokemon with its large wings and dragon like appearance, they immediately start to take pictures and take notes about its physique. Alan immediately notices that this Charizard is a rather is rather fully grown, as the flame on its tail is burning brightly, and on top of that the wings and the muscle on its body look absolutely strengthened. So that would mean that this Charizard must be used to flying long distances, because its wings and its overall body looks very conditioned. Ash, on the other hand, notices that the scales on its body are emitting an odd type of heat, which would signify one of two things: either it's happy or it's being very very protective. But protective of what? And then they notice something. The Charizard was guarding its nest amidst some volcanic rocks. There were two eggs. Both Ash and Alan stared at each other in awe. They have definitely seen Pokemon eggs before, but to see two fresh Charizard eggs right in front of them in the natural habitat, this was something very very new to them. As they noticed, as they noticed the Charizard nurturing the eggs, they suddenly saw the Charizard being hit with some sort of electric attack, and then they noticed something. A bald man, dressed in some weird kind of outfit, had hit the Charizard with a taser gun. The Mama Charizard tries to get up, but it's hit with another one of those taser guns. Alan immediately recognizes that because the bolts were filled with electricity, it was super effective on a flying type like Charizard. And then he notices something. Another one of those strange looking men wearing the same outfit comes up from behind his partner and tells him that he missed the first shot, and that's why he had to waste his taser gun. The first man tells the other to shut up and just gather the eggs. In response to which, the second one once again reminds him that they need to quote unquote snag the Charizard first. And the first one once again sighs before taking out a rather odd looking device from his arm. And just in the moment, a dark looking Pokeball is flung at the Charizard and it's captured before being sending back, and the ball is being sent back into the same mechanical equipment from which it was fired from. The snagging was complete, as per the grunts. After that, they both began to survey the eggs and make up their mind whether to take them take them to their boss or have them for themselves. Ash and Alan were noticing this, and Alan immediately notices that Ash's anger is being flared up. His eyes his eyes are filled with rage and just the intent of doing something right now. But before Alan could tell Ash to calm down, Ash gets up on his bicycle and just absolutely rams his bicycle straight into both of those grunts, sending them crashing into some rocks. One of them hits his head and is immediately knocked out, but the other one just hits his belly on one of those rocks, but is in agonizing pain. But unfortunately for Ash, the speed in which he was riding his bicycle left him sending flying into one of those volcanoes. And but before he could fall, he barely manages to grab the edge of the cliff. As the grunt, who was not knocked out, wakes up and looks at Ash before telling him that he made a huge mistake. But unfortunately for him, he's met with yet another vehicular accident. As this time it's Alan who rams his bike into the grunt, sending him crashing again, and this time knocking him out. Alan picks Ash from the jaws of death and tells him that he's a stupid idiot for attempting something so reckless. Ash tells him that what else would have they done, and Alan tells Ash that they could have flung some rocks at them, or better yet, had coordinated their strategy a bit more instead of rushing in headfirst like an idiot, had gotten themselves killed. Ash tells Alan that this is no time for blame game, as they should take these eggs and run away before these grunts wake up. Alan tells Ash that this may not be a good idea, as these eggs belong in the volcano and belong to the Charizard. Asks Alan if he truly believes that the eggs will be safe here, and just hands him one of those eggs and tells him to put it inside his bag, as he does with the other one. Before they leave, Ash, in one last attempt, tries to grab the mechanical equipment on the grunt's arm, somehow trying to release the Charizard. But all he does is give him a slight electric shock, which is enough for them to realize that there's nothing much they can do here. So they both take the eggs and run away, back to the professors. They arrive looking as if they saw a ghost, and Professor Sycamore asks them that by the looks of it, their their attempt at seeing a ghost Pokemon was rather successful. The twins look at each other and begin to sweat profusely. Professor Sycamore looks at their face and immediately recognizes the worry and the guilt on their faces and asks them what was wrong. Before Ash could blabber out another half-assed lie to save them, Alan decides that it is better for the professors to know the truth, and they tell him everything. Professor Sycamore looks at Birch and asks him if he knows anything about these strange men that the two pupils were talking about, and Professor Birch tells them that they must be the team Snagim. Professor Sycamore asks what's the deal with this new evil, quote unquote evil team in the Hoenn region, and Professor Birch explains that ever since Team Aqua and Team Magba basically vanished off the face of the Hoenn, there was a power vacuum in the criminal underworld, and somehow this Team Snagim, which was supposedly ran out of the Ore region by another evil team by the name of Team Cypher, decided to make the Hoenn their new home, and due to the power vacuum and the untimely fall of Team Rocket in the Johto region, they were able to put some of the local grunts under their control and basically topple off any remnants of Team Aqua and Team Magma, thus making them the dominant evil team in the Hoenn region. Professor Sycamore asks Professor Birch what their intentions are. Are their intentions the same to control Groudon/Kyogre? But Professor Birch tells him that nobody knows what their intentions are. All they know is that they have a large number of people signed under their name, and they have a special device that they use for snagging Pokemons and capturing them from trainers. Even the Pokemons that are owned by other trainers are captured by this weird technology. And Ash and Alan confirm that the device that was used by the grunt matched Professor Birch's descriptions. Alan then tells them the another important detail that he omitted in the first version of his story, and then he reveals the egg that he has in his bag. Professor Sycamore looks at it in awe and asks them what were they thinking, and Ash explains to Professor Sycamore that if they had not taken this egg, the team Snagim grunts probably would have snagged the eggs as well, and he just could not let that happen. And Professor Sycamore smiles at Ash and tells him that he did the right thing, but he didn't know what they were going to do with those eggs, and considered giving them to Professor Birch so that he could give them to trainers starting fresh. Ash immediately objects to this, saying that why can't they keep the eggs for themselves? Alan looks at Ash in some sort of a cautionary tale, but Professor Birch tells Sycamore that it's quite alright, because after all, these boys were the one who rescued the eggs, and somehow they are responsible for them now. Professor Sycamore looks at Ash and Alan and asks them if they are truly ready to have a Pokemon of their own, let alone raise it fresh from an egg. And Alan, taking Ash's side, tells the tells the professor that they have some experience in breeding Pokemon that are really young. Plus, this would be a fresh start. This would be a new challenge for them, just to see how well they would do in the Pokemon breeding aspect. So Professor Sycamore agrees to this. For the next few days, the two twins take care of the eggs and also do all the jobs that were assigned to them under this Hoenn field trip. They learn more about the Pokemon of the Hoenn region, the history of the Hoenn region, the Pokemon League, gyms, battle frontiers, and all other stuff. Ash is particularly interested in the Regis and where he could find them. After a few weeks, the field trip is over, and now it's time to return home. But throughout this field trip, there was something going on in the heads of the twins. They were thinking about the Mama Charizard and how it was snagged away from its eggs before she could even see her babies hatching. So one night, as they were sleeping, looks at Alan and asks if he's thinking the same thing. And Alan tells Ash that he is. They can't just leave the Charizard in the hands of those Team Snagim grunts and forget. And even other than Charizard, Professor Birch told them that they were adept at snatching away other trainers Pokemons. So just imagine how much pain they have caused, and someone needs to put a stop to this. And even if they were not going to be successful in this, he has to at least give it a try. And Ash looks at him and smiles, as saying that he was thinking the exact same thing. So the next day, as they were preparing to leave, both Ash and Alan walk up to Professor Sycamore and tell them their plan. Professor Sycamore looks at them and tells them that their plan sounds absolutely reckless, and under normal circumstances, he would not allow this. Both Ash and Alan look down, realizing that they did all they could, and they at least put it out there. And although they got rejected, it was no big deal. They could just ask him again and could return to Hoenn after gaining some experience. But then Professor Sycamore tells them that this is not a normal circumstances. This problem of snagging Pokemon and this problem of a new evil team in the Hoenn region is something that could definitely expand to Kalos. Ever since the fall of Team Flare, there is a power vacuum in the Kalos criminal underworld as well. So if they were going, so if they were going through with this plan of theirs, they better do it. They better do it carefully. Ash and Alan looked at Professor Sycamore and asks him if he's sure that he wants them to do this. And Professor Sycamore tells them that they are more than ready, and he has seen their growth in this field trip in particular, and how well adept they are at understanding Pokemon and at some aspects of Pokemon battling as well. So he trusts them with their decision. Plus, they are not going to stay kids forever, and someday they will have to make their own decisions. And as long as both of them are together, and they will watch each other's back, so there's not much to worry about. Professor Sycamore tells this to Professor Birch, who is more than happy to take these two under his wing. So for the next few months, as Professor Sycamore departs for Kalos, the two twins work under Professor Birch and raise their eggs with them. And eventually, one day, the both eggs hatched into two baby Charmanders. Both of the Charmander siblings take to each other immediately, and also to their trainers. As the first set of people they noticed were Ash and Alan. So naturally, they were very affectionate towards their trainers and obeyed their orders from the very first day. Both the twins had a lot of experience in raising baby Pokemons, so they did very well in nurturing them and little by little introducing them to the aspect of Pokemon battling. They had enough experience as most of the trainers who just started their journey in the Hoenn region wanted a testing battle to test out their starters. So thus the both Charmander brothers also gained valuable experience in battling these beginner trainers. Occasionally they would venture out in the outskirts of Littlewood town to battle some bug catchers to battle some other wild Pokemon gain some valuable experience for their Charmanders. One day, as they were as they were training their Pokemon, Professor Birch walked up to them and asked them if they were going to be free tonight. And the two brothers tell Professor Birch that they were absolutely were, and asks him where is he going. Professor Birch tells them that he has an important job in Rushboro City. So for this night, they will be in charge of the lab and its protection. The brothers instantly agree, as they were quite used to the Pokemon lab at this point. As they were guarding the lab, one day they noticed the same grunt from Mount Pyre roaming around the area, the outskirts of Little Root Town. They were immediately suspicious of this man and figured that he was here definitely planning something nasty. So when nightfall came, instead of waiting for the grunt to make his move, Ash and Alan confronted him just outside Professor Birch's lab and asks him what the hell is he doing here. The grunt tells them that he's here to steal some of the starter Pokemon, not even not even considering covering his tracks or hiding his plan. Ash and Alan recognizes that this one is thick in the head, and probably not the smartest one. So they tell him that they have the police on their speed dial, and if he does not leave right now, they're going to call the police. The grunt tells them that in that case he will just have to make it short and take care of these two idiots before snagging the starter Pokemon and leaving. But then he notices something. He remembers these two. These two were the same kids who attacked him with their bicycles in Mount Pyre, and he immediately starts to rage before he sends out his Pokemon, a Zangoose, which looks just as angry as the grunt himself. Ash and Alan send out their Charmander to battle it, and although Zangoose is at a much higher level, the Charmander brothers have much more battling experience and synergy in their movements, and their teamwork proves to be too much for the Zangoose. As it begins to get angrier and angrier, the grunt, in response, also starts to get even more angry and tells the two brothers that he's going to make them pay before he unleashes something from his hand. The same device that was used for snagging the Pokemon starts to release an odd type of energy, and Zangoose reacts to this. Before it looks like all the veins in its body are beginning to close out as the blood flow in its body stops, and then it is surrounded by a dark energy as its aura erupts. Ash and Alan looked at each other absolutely horrified. They once again order both the Charmanders to use an Ember attack, but the Ember attack evaporates before even reaching the Zangoose. Just the dark energy like aura that it's emitting right now is enough to scare both the baby lizards. Ash remains somewhat adamant that they could take him, but Alan realizes that this Zangoose is a whole different beast, and all they were doing is endangering their Pokemon. So he tells Ash that they need to retreat. Although hesitant, just the look on the Zangoose face convinces even the hot-headed Ash that his brother may be right in this one. They both order a smokescreen attack before retreating. The Zangoose is blinded and so is the grunt. As they both start to look around the area, trying to find the boys, but realizing that they must have fled, the grunt smiles, thinking that they just made his job much more easier. As he tries to recall the Zangoose and go inside the lab to snag away the rest of the Pokemon, but the Zangoose refuses to go inside his Pokeball, as it's filled with bloodlust and with no Pokemon around to take it out. It turns its ire towards its trainer as it marches forward and hits it with a shoulder tackle, sending the grunt crashing into some trees. Before Zangoose could land some more damaging blows, out of nowhere an Umbreon dives into it with a Skull Bash attack, knocking it out with one hit. As the grunt merely wakes up, he utters the name Wes, and then a youngster walks up behind Umbreon, looking majestic as ever. He looks at the grunt and calls him an idiot for bringing out the shadow energy with so little experience in battling. He calls the grunt weak and pathetic and tells him to get up and head towards Rustboro City before it's too late. The grunt asks him what about the starter Pokemon, and the person named Wes tells him that there's no need for that, as they already have some, as the other grunts have some of them in stock. Plus, they have already created enough noise here, and they don't want to attract unnecessary attention from the police, so they must leave. And so they did, and so they do. After they have left, Ash and Alan come out of hiding, and both are awestruck at the power in display, not just from the Zangoos, but from the Umbreon which came out of nowhere. Ash asks Alan if he has ever seen something like that before, and Alan tells Ash that he hasn't. In no book was there mention of this, and even Zangoos' abilities don't match the description of the power that it was displaying. But what he was really impressed was with the Umbreon, as it was able to take down this powered up Zangoos with just one hit. Whoever the trainer was, he was definitely linked with Team Snagim, and he was the one they needed to look out for. The next morning, as Professor Birch returns, the twins tell their tale about how one of the Team Snagim grunts was trying to sneak into the lab, and the events that happened thereafter. Professor Birch asks them if they are okay, and after hearing about the battle, he realizes something. He tells the twins that after after listening to the account of the battle that they were in, he had made up his mind that both of them were now ready to take on the gym challenge. Ash and Alan looked at each other and then looked at Professor Birch and asks him what was the need of the gym challenge. And Professor Birch tells him that this is the quickest way and the most natural way of a trainer to get stronger. If they indeed planned on rescuing the Mama Charizard and stopping Team Snagim's activities in the Hoenn, and thus preventing them from reaching the Kalos region, they needed to get stronger. And taking the gym challenge was the best way. The current champion of the Hoenn region, Brandon, received his own starter Pokemon from Professor Birch, and after he himself took the gym challenge, he became much stronger than he would have been otherwise. So Ash and Alan agreed to this, and the next day they received their Pokeballs and a Pokédex from Professor Birch before setting out. Their journey took them to Olet town, and on the outskirts of the small town, Ash immediately notices a small Pokemon that he recognizes as Poochyena. He always wanted to catch this Pokemon as it reminded him of a dog Pokemon that he always wanted to have. Ash tells Alan to stay back, and Alan does so, telling Ash that he needs to be careful and not scare it away. And Ash tells him not to worry about it. He sends out his Charmander and immediately orders it to use an Ember attack. But there's something wrong here. Poochyena's attention is not on running away, and neither it is on Charmander. His attention is on Ash and his black outfit. For some reason, Ash's black outfit and red hat on top of it drew the ire of this baby dark type Pokemon, as it quickly dodged the Ember attack and lashed onto Ash's arm, biting it fiercely. Ash's Charmander is incredibly confused as to what to do. Ash orders it to use an Ember attack, but Alan tells it to stop, as all it to do is burn Ash with the Poochyena itself. But before they both could react, a Pokeball is flung at the Poochyena before it's trapped inside the ball, and after two shakes, the ball stops. Alan actually captured the Poochyena that Ash wanted to capture so bad. Ash immediately rounds up on his brother, telling that was unfair, and he wanted to capture it. Alan tells Ash that all he did was save him, as there was no way that Ash was ever going to free his hand of the Poochyena's jaw, and his Charmander couldn't just use Ember as it would burn Ash with it. So after some bickering, they both go to the Pokemon Center where Ash is injected with some anti-rabies injection, and his wound is tapped up. After they exit, they notice someone standing outside the Pokemon Center. This someone calls Ash a clown for trying to capture a wild Poochyena with so much recklessness. Ash asks him who the hell is he and why should they care about his opinion. And the trainer introduces himself as the champion of the Hoenn region, Brendan. Ash and Alan looked at him awestruck. Before Ash looks at him with a skeptical look and tells him that he cannot be the champion, as he is too dumb looking to be a champion. All the other champions like Lance, Cynthia, Diantha, they all look so majestic. But this Brendan guy just looked like a punk. There was no way he's the champion. This immediately drew the ire of Brendan as both of them start to bicker like children. Before Brendan tells them that although Ash is very disrespectful, today is their lucky day, as Professor Birch sent him to give to give them some experience on Pokemon battling. So he'll battle one of them. Ash immediately steps up to battle, but Alain tells that Ash that it's not fair, as he already had his chance battling the Poochyena, and now it's his turn. Ash tells him to square up for a stone paper scissors, and naturally Ash loses despite trying to cheat by holding on to his stone, as Alan takes out the paper and thus he's the winner. So with that, Alan squares up with the champion of the Hoenn region, Brendan, and the battle begins. Brendan sends out a Cyndaquil and Alan sends out his Charmander. Alan asks if this is the strongest Pokemon in his arsenal, as he's surprised as he thought the champion would have much stronger Pokemon than this. Brendan tells him that he just received this Cyndaquil from Professor Birch, and he wanted to test this out against a Pokemon of similar experience type. So the battle begins as both of them use Ember to try and overpower each other, and they are even in power. But Brendan's battling style and his experience is definitely much more higher than Alan. And when Alan tries to use a smoke screen to blind Cyndaquil and land a sneak attack, Brendan orders a swift attack, and Swift has 100% accuracy, meaning that it would not miss, as it blasts through the smoke screen and hits Charmander head on. This is followed up by repeated tackle attacks, and eventually, despite putting up a great fight, Charmander is unable to battle, and thus Brendan wins this one. He compliments Alan on his battling strategy and tells him that he is definitely the more smarter one. Ash challenges him to a battle next, but Brendan tells him that unfortunately he can't. But the next time he meets them, he will definitely battle Ash. He then tells them that although the nearest gym is in the Petalburg city, they couldn't just battle the gym leader because the stipulation of battling the Petalburg gym is that they have to gather all the other seven badges first. So by that logic, they should head to Rushboro City first. There, there they would challenge the Rock type gym leader Roxanne. So he advises them to prepare the Charmanders accordingly, and while they're at it, try to capture some water or grass type before he leaves. So with that, the both twins start start heading towards Rushboro City, not Rushboro City, where their first gym battle awaits them. Unbeknownst to them, the man named Wes was keeping a close eye on them ever since they defeated, ever since they battled the Zangoose and the Grunt, and he seems interested by this turn of events that was about to take place. And guys, that's where I'll be ending this part. So sorry for the interruptions and the pauses between the script. I was I was just like narrating it on the flow, just from the slides, as I did not like. What happened was I wrote a script in the regarding the story, and I had to scrap it completely because it was I don't think it was pretty good, that good. So I had to scrap it and make this one like from fresh. Shout out to Pickle Dill because he helped me with this, and I'll see you guys soon. So stay tuned for the next part, and God bless.